Hi y'all, welcome to the video. Disclaimer before we start, this video will discuss sensitive topics. If you are sensitive to the potential topics that this case revolves around, along with conversations around SA, then just skip this one and I'll try to do a more lighthearted one next time. Also, everything I'm saying is unsubstantiated and just my personal opinions. I don't know anything about anything. This is just a girl chatting it up, a certified yapper. All right, enjoy.
All right, hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Monica, and today's video is going to be about Gypsy Rose Blanchard and how y'all are being really weird. Y'all are just weird. All right, let's get into it. Alright, so Gypsy Rose Blanchard is free, and I've been seeing a lot of content about her, and in case you didn't know, I'm going to give a quick summary. So Gypsy Rose was a victim of Munchausen's by proxy through her mother, Dee Blanchard. Munchausen's by proxy is a mental health disorder where a caregiver creates the appearance of health issues in another person, usually their child. Gypsy's mom, Dee, created the appearance that Gypsy was super duper sick so she could get the sympathy and empathy of medical professionals and members of their community. Dee claimed Gypsy had leukemia, asthma, had muscular dystrophy, even had to use like a wheelchair, even though like Gypsy could actually walk, fed her through a feeding tube, even though she could actually eat, and so much more throughout the entirety of her childhood and early 20s. In reality, Gypsy Rose was a healthy kid whose mother put her through horrors and robbed her of a childhood and young adulthood. She put her through unnecessary medical procedures, including surgeries, even the removal of many of her teeth. And I think that happened because she had her like salivary glands removed, which is like sick. She is not only affected like psychologically and through like the guilt and through the fact that she went to prison, like she's also physically changed by her mother's mental illness. Like her body is changed, which is crazy to think about. As Gypsy Rose got older, she started to realize her mother was lying and that she, in a sense, was a prisoner. She was trapped, had no education, was separated from her family, was extremely sheltered. She started going online and she met this guy that became her boyfriend. At this point, she had no friends. Like, she had no contact with the outside world. I think she only had like a first grade education, and she was able to sneak on the laptop and she started making a Facebook. She started going on dating websites and she met this guy. He was apparently the first the first person ever that she ever told that she could actually walk. And they, I guess, fell in love or whatever, who knows? But the point is, she tried to run away several times when she realized she was actually 18 and not 14 as her mother had claimed, and it didn't work. She would run away and then she would end up back home and then her mother would chain her up. Like, it was real tragic. Like, it's really crazy. But eventually they came up with a plan to murder her mother. They both planned it, but her boyfriend at the time was the one that did it. And Dee Blanchard was brutally murdered. Her boyfriend, Nicholas Godejong, faced more severe charges because he's apparently the one that initiated the murder plot and he was the one that killed the mother. So he was given less sympathy because he himself was not a victim of Dee. He is now serving life in prison, and Gypsy Rose is finally free after serving 8 years out of the 10-year sentence. And this has caused a stir online. True crime aficionados were already aware of Gypsy Rose and Dee, but awareness of this case hit a mainstream level when the limited series, The Act, premiered on Hulu in 2019. The Act is a limited series based on the plot of this situation, and it was received exceptionally well. It gained many nominations and it won actually a few awards. I saw it and it was pretty good. The story is wildly fascinating, tragic, and something that will be referenced and thought about for years to come. It's the worst case scenario and an example of what happens when multiple systems and individuals fail not only a child, but a mother who was clearly mentally ill and struggling. Gypsy Rose's freedom is something that a lot of people have opinions on because this is a super complex situation and it's currently the topic of conversation around the world because along with her release from prison came the new Lifetime docuseries, The Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, which I believe is the only documentary that she's actually had a hand in. She had no hand in the Hulu show, The Act. This is, I think, her first time taking ownership of her narrative and telling her story. So it's the docuseries on Lifetime, and also she released a book called Released: Conversations on the Eve of Freedom. For context, y'all, now let's move into actually talking about this. For context, she was released December 28th, 2023. The first episode of her Lifetime special launched January 5th, and her book was released January 9th. This is all in like a week and some change, y'all. Like, this is the press run of a lifetime. No pun intended. Press runs typically refer to a series of scheduled interviews and appearances across multiple media outlets in efforts to promote specific projects. Since her release, Gypsy Rose has appeared on Good Morning America, The View, Entertainment Tonight. She did a podcast with Nick Viall that's like nearly 2 hours long. I even saw her on a red carpet, and there's even more. Like, she has so many TikTok followers right now. She's getting so many followers across all social media. She's making a lot of content. She's becoming a meme. Like, there's so much going on right now. This, opinions on her, the case aside, independent of how you feel about her, y'all, this is nuts. Like, this is absolutely bananas. From a logistical perspective, this is a major operation. She obviously has a huge team, because you don't just walk out of jail and have a book and a docuseries ready in like 1 week. Good Morning America does not just take you onto their broadcast just because they feel really bad for you and you just came out of jail a week ago. Like, this is realistically months or actually years in the making, meaning there's so much money involved in this. There is so much money involved in this, y'all. Like, I'm not even talking about the money in Gypsy Rose's pocket, because I'm sure the advance for the book is chef's kiss, right? I'm talking about all the adult individuals involved in handling Gypsy Rose. Like, she got handlers. She went from one handler, her mother, to another handler, the federal government, to another handler, her PR agency, y'all. Like, this is nuts, right? There's millions to be made through this, and millions that have already been made. But even like outside of that, right? Even outside of her team, the physical act of having your body moved from studio set to studio set to studio set in the week you've been released from prison, y'all, is a lot. I don't know if any of y'all have ever been on a professional set, but they are exhausting. They are tedious. Everyone is touching you. Everybody's questioning you. They're intense. They're highly performative. There's lights in your face. You got tape on your body because you're mic'd up. Like, it's a really intense space. There's a lot of people running and moving around. And she's doing that back to back to back to back to back. Like, that's not easy. It blows my mind even further when you take into consideration, like, that she said in her Lifetime docuseries, and she's also said in a few other interviews, that her favorite memory is her first day in prison, y'all. When she like walked into like the yard or whatever, and I think she walked over to some benches, and she really thought to herself, I am finally free. And she acknowledges how crazy it is that for her, prison granted her more freedom than when she was living with her mother. And this makes perfect sense, because she wasn't allowed to have friends. She didn't go to school. She knew no one, had to sneak on a laptop, meaning she has been a prisoner her entire life practically. And at 32 years old, is currently on a professional celebrity press tour during the first week of her life out. I don't know if any of y'all know anything about being institutionalized, but let's just say it would not be easy for me to do that many speaking engagements in a week, and I'm a certified yapper, y'all. Like, I came from a loving family. I have a college education, meaning I have been socialized from K through 12. I have been talking. I have been around other people. I have been raising my hand and answering questions. I have been reading presentations. I have a college education. I did this in college. I'm an artist. I'm a social media influencer as well. I can yap, 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 yap. And you have me go on a red carpet, Good Morning America, The View, do a 2-hour podcast, Entertainment Tonight, all in 1 week. I'm ending my life. Like, I'm not making it to the end of the week. I would have a mental breakdown, yo. I would be suffering immensely at the hands of such hypervisibility, and I didn't even kill my mother, y'all. I am terrified for Gypsy Rose for many reasons, including her weird-ass husband, and I'm not even gonna get into that. Because that is not my place. And I'm trying my darndest not to talk about people in ways in which is not fair, because it is not fair. But moving on, I'm not going to talk about that. That is not my business, right? That's not my business, y'all. But I'm just hating and I'm speculating. But anyways, moving on. My main question for this video is, what's up with the baby girlification of white criminals? If you've been online anytime in the past week or two and your algorithm is anything like mine, we are currently living through Gypsy Rose's catapult to fame, through her becoming a major influencer. And I mean, it's happening at record speeds, y'all. Like, she's speed running press post prison. That's crazy. And while I think it's like totally valid for her to take ownership of her own narrative and put out a docuseries, a book, even do speaking engagements, I would rather hear the story from her voice. Like, I don't mind that. But I think this clip from her appearance on The View, published January 5th, is a great example of what's going on.
So for right now, like, that is my goal. I have a message, and putting it out there is super important to me, because the whole reason that I am doing all of this, documentaries and everything else, is because I know that I have a big platform now, and let's see what I can do with it. Yeah. I'm gonna try to create some change and, you know, be a voice for the voiceless. You know, if there is someone out there watching right now, please listen to me, heed my words, that you are not alone in this, you know, situation. There are other ways out. I did it the wrong way.
No.
You know.
Don't say that.
But I did.
I
did something wrong, and I paid my dues for it.
Oh, you mean that part?
Yes, the part of it, you know, that part of it. Yeah.
Where are you going with this?
No. You know, so I did something.
Murder is wrong.
Yes, murder's wrong.
I do want to ask, people's grace for Gypsy Rose to the point of disconnecting from the reality of her crime, second-degree murder, which she pleaded guilty to, is a privilege only afforded to those that are deemed worthy of our sympathy. I can't help but think of Cyntoia Brown, who was sentenced to life in prison for murder and robbery at the age of 16. At 16, she was tried as an adult for the murder of Johnny Allen, a 43-year-old who in 2004 picked her up with the intention of paying to have sex with her, a minor. Cyntoia was being trafficked by a man who went by the name Cutthroat, who was abusive. She claims self-defense is the reason why she shot Johnny Allen in the back of the head. Detectives say he was found in a sleeping position and that essentially she was looking to rob him, that she wasn't in any danger, and shot him as he slept naked in bed.
Brown was arrested for the murder of 43-year-old Johnny Allen. The teen said she was being prostituted by a pimp named Cutthroat. Cameras were rolling as she described Cutthroat to a psychiatrist.
I remember one time, the first time he did something to me is when he choked me and I passed out. Because he said I thought he was a joke.
What else did he do to you?
He talked real bad to me and jacked me up. He pulled me by my hair and dragged me and stuff. He put guns up me, told me to strap and stuff like that, getting at it with other people.
Did you ever have sex with the guys?
When I cut, put a gun up to me, I did.
Cyntoia says Cutthroat sent her out to work on that August night in 2004. She ended up at a Sonic where she met Allen. He offered to pay her $150 and took her home, where the two ended up in bed.
At first he was just stroking me, but then it's like he just grabbed me like in between my legs, like he just grabbed it real hard. And he just gave me this look. It was like a very fierce look. And then it just sent these chills up my spine. I'm thinking he's gonna hit me or do something like that. But then he rolls over and reaches, like he's reaching to the side of the bed or something. So I'm thinking, no, he's not finna hit me. He's finna get a gun.
And what did you do at that time?
I just grabbed the gun and I shot him.
Prosecutors argued Brown's real motive was robbery. She ran away with cash, guns, and Allen's car, which she abandoned. She eventually, anonymously, called 911.
You're talking about a child being trafficked. She apparently never knew her dad. Her mother struggled with substance abuse and drank heavily during pregnancy. Apparently, Cyntoia has fetal alcohol syndrome from that as well. She had suffered sexual abuse as a child from many adults, including relatives. She was put up for adoption and ended up in the system. She got in trouble with the law, as many kids do statistically that end up under the care of the government. She ran away, was homeless, and was picked up by Cutthroat, who ended up trafficking her. She was tried as an adult during a time in Tennessee where if you were arrested as a child for prostitution, you'd be tried as a prostitute and not as a victim of human trafficking. This law has apparently changed since, but had it not been for celebrities learning about Cyntoia's case and starting public online campaigns, she'd likely be behind bars until her late 60s, maybe even dying in prison. In 2013, Tennessee Governor Bill Haslam commuted her sentence to 15 years and she was released in 2019.
Instead of waiting out her sentence, last year, the now 30-year-old Brown and her lawyers petitioned Tennessee Governor Bill Haslam to grant her clemency.
It got a lot of publicity. Our job is to look at it on the legal merits and on her case and treat it just like every other one.
At her hearing, Brown acknowledged her crime.
When I was 16, I did horrible things. And I have carried that with me this whole time.
But also pointed to her rehabilitation behind bars.
I have a college degree now. I have a family, a whole new family, a whole new community of people who love me, who believe in me, who support me.
Including the Glitter Project, a program she developed to help girls who've been trafficked and exploited like she was.
I've been able to help people, which is amazing. Young people, young kids, they listen.
She was backed up by witnesses, including teachers and advocates, even a former prosecutor who was in charge of Brown's 2008 appeal.
I argued that she needed to spend the rest of her life in prison.
Soon after, he became one of her college teachers.
If you grant her early release, she is going to invest herself in people who might otherwise come to this institution. She will seek them out, she will find them, she will mentor and minister to them, and she will keep other people from coming here.
I do pray that you show me mercy and that you give me a second chance.
Brown had to wait more than 7 months to find out the governor's answer. Clemency granted.
Cyntoia Brown was a child, like many other children who were failed by the system, living through several generations of dysfunction and poverty like many of us, and who, rather than given grace and the opportunity to rehabilitate, was tried as an adult. A situation that is not uncommon for Black children who, through systematic racism, are not given the same grace as Gypsy Rose, who was an adult when she committed her crime. Granted, she was a very sheltered individual, but of course, like, what is a child but an individual that doesn't know what the heck is going on, right? And needs to be given an opportunity to work through certain things in their life. Cyntoia Brown was essentially being raised by a mentally ill mother, ended up in a broken system, then homeless, then trafficked, abused by all the adults in her life, and made a reckless and stupid decision that was not premeditated and that stood to take 60 years from her life. And had it not been for Rihanna and Kim Kardashian, amongst some other celebrities, she would have never gone out. Like, it's the fact that Kim Kardashian had to put her hand on this case for it to, like, be fixed. Like, that's absurd, y'all. Like, and there's countless Cyntoias. Like, that's the craziest part. There's countless of them. And they are met with the cold reality that if you do the crime, you do the time, right? Like, that's what people will say. Well, you shouldn't have you shouldn't have put yourself into that situation. Meanwhile, Gypsy Rose is afforded grace for plotting and playing a part in killing her mother because she was seen as a child and is still currently infantilized.
I just want to pop in to say that my goal with mentioning Cyntoia Brown is not to compare victims from the perspective of one person being more worthy of another. I'm reflecting on how a system is broken and how people are able to find all this deep empathy for Gypsy Rose, as they should, you know, she's a victim. And for them to recognize that there's so many people in our prison system that will never see the light of day and for whom you can make the same argument that you're making with Cyntoia or with Gypsy Rose, but because of our broken system, we're never going to know about them, hear about them, and they're never going to get their freedom. It's not to compare victims. It's not to say one is more worthy than the other, but it's to say it's so easy to make a case for someone when they are deemed weaker, more innocent historically than the other. And independent of how individuals feel about that, because I may feel one way, you may feel the other way, what it comes down to is how they're judged in the court of law. And the people that are judging in a court of law are carrying these biases. Also, to bring up the point that we shouldn't be having to have public campaigns of celebrity involvement to rectify a broken system. Gypsy Rose's attention she's getting now is not what changed her verdict. She was sentenced to 10 years without all of us knowing what was even going on. That was a decision by the jury, by the court of law, based off of the evidence they saw. They thought that's what was appropriate. Without any public involvement, they thought giving Cyntoia Brown 60 years was appropriate. So it's the fact that all of this public attention has to be garnered to rectify a broken system. It's not about one getting more attention than the other and that being inherently the problem. It's the fact that we have to pay attention to it for it to be fixed when these systems are in place to protect us. They're supposed to protect us, and they use our tax dollars to protect us. But the people that are historically the ones that are the most disenfranchised will suffer at the hands of these systems the most. And Gypsy Rose can go on The View and they can forget why she's even there, in a sense. Like, the interviewer can be like, oh yeah, it's fine. Oh yeah, the murder's wrong, right? It can be this lighthearted thing where other people will spend the entirety of their life in jail, in prison, over something that they did in childhood. And that's not Gypsy Rose's fault, but I just think that was a good example of how it's easy to dissociate from the reality of some people's crimes when you don't inherently see them as a criminal and you don't fear them. They're in that room with her. They don't fear her. They don't see her as a murderer. They don't see her as somebody that maybe has a lot of psychological problems. And she may not, but it's to say when she walks in the room, those associations aren't automatically made when people look at her. She has the privilege of being small and white and have a soft voice versus somebody that maybe is of a different skin complexion, is from a different socioeconomic background, so maybe has a different form of speaking, speaks in a different dialect that's regarded, that's usually associated with criminals, and just all the biases that come with that. I just feel like that moment from The View is so subtle, but it's just so representative of so much. As she's speaking to Gypsy, she's not thinking criminal. But there's people who move on from a crime they made in their past, and they have rehabilitated, they have made major changes in their life, they are at a completely different place in their life, and every time someone looks at them, all they see is criminal. All they see is somebody that's dangerous. They see them walking down the street, and they cross the street. They don't want to be in a room with them. They feel uncomfortable with them just because of their skin tone, their stature, the way they speak. Yeah. If you know, you know. If you don't know and you think that comparing victims, then this conversation is not for you.
And here's the thing. I have no hard stances on Gypsy Rose, right? Like, if I was in her position, who knows what I would have done? Like, I may have done the same thing, to be honest. Like, I can totally wrap my head around, like, that situation. And I think the thing that some people forget is, like, that most people that, like, do crimes, like, if you're in community with people that have, like, gone to prison and shit, like, you would know that, like, you can kind of justify almost, like, every crime. Like, there's very few people that are just, like, purely sadistic, that just do bad things just to do bad things, just because they're bored. Like, if you really get into the nitty gritty of most people's stories, you could be like, damn, I see how you ended up in that situation. Like, so it's to say, like, of course you could rationalize Gypsy Rose's situation. Like, it's a crazy situation, right? And like in how she even ended up in that situation, I could understand, because it wasn't even just what she went through with her mom. It's the fact that she was extremely vulnerable and was exposed to and was taken advantage of by an older man. I think this is like up for debate, because some people like to say she took advantage of an autistic boy and used him to like kill her mother. He was 26. That's not a boy. And also, he thought she was a minor when he started messaging her. He was an adult. He thought she was a minor because she didn't know that she was 18 yet. I think she thought she was like 14 or 15. So they were having conversations with him thinking she was 15. Turns out she wasn't. But like, we're talking about somebody that was like seeking out a minor also. Also, side note, they said in the trial, I didn't even look up into his trial too much, but they were saying that he has an IQ of 82. Fun fact, y'all, the average global IQ is 89. Like, y'all expect him to be a genius to commit murder, to kill, and in such a messy way and not even get rid of the body? He was supposed to be a genius? Like, I'm confused, right? But whatever. Yeah, but either way, apparently he had sick and murderous fantasies, and he likely brainwashed her to do such a terrible thing. She was already somebody who was manipulated her whole life, so she was beyond vulnerable. And the thing is, this doesn't change just because she presents as somebody that's joyous and free. I think something people are forgetting is that she was raised and trained to perform. Beyond even like the level of, let's say, pageant kids. She was trained to perform to the point of unnecessary, irreversible medical intervention, convincing rooms of specialists who know more than we could ever know about the illnesses her mother was lying and saying she had, right? And Gypsy Rose, as she got older, knew that some of the things were lies. Meaning the cognitive dissonance of her existence would be enough to break anyone's brain apart. This is a deeply sad story. She went from the prison of her mother's mental illness and a broken medical system to literal prison. Now, to the confines of a marriage, I'm like, girl, if I've never stepped a foot outside and I just spent the last 8 years in prison, I'm not trying to be married, but I get it. She from the South. Once again, none of my business. But, so yeah, she went from prison with her mom to literal prison to marriage and a book, a documentary series, like the prison of public perception, the prison of a PR agency, right? This is kind of dystopic, y'all. Like, don't y'all think? The reason why I just think this sucks is because she's on the advocacy run, right? Like, they got her on track to be an advocate. She's dropping like the key phrases that like signal that she is an advocate. Like, she's trying to teach people to not do what she did, whatever. And it's not going to end well. She's being set up to be an advocate for people in her situation. And that's technically what the book is about and what she says sharing her story is about. It's about getting things off her chest, but also apparently communicating that the way she chose to go about things is wrong. But we got interviewers forgetting what she even did. And we got people gassing her head up. And this will not end well. She was raised to perform for praise. She was raised in a psychological war zone and her body was pillaged. People saying, wow, you're so well spoken considering you grew up watching cartoons and have a first grade education. Granted, she did get her degree, or she did get her GED in prison. I don't know if she got her college degree, but people that are praising her for being a good speaker on these interviews don't understand that she's had to perform to survive. If you say, oh my God, you speak so well, it's to say, I don't think you understand what she was going through. Of course she's been speaking well. She's been trained for 2 decades to convince adults to pity her. She was being coached by her mother to pretend that she was mentally younger than what she was, meaning she had to understand her age and change it consciously to her perception of what a child is in order to manipulate doctors and the government for their income and survival. We are talking about somebody that was trained at such extreme levels to lie. We are talking about a liar. She mentioned in some interviews, I haven't listened to them in full, but the level of lying and disconnecting from guilt and her emotions that she had to get to. This is not a normal thing, y'all. She will struggle to transition into an advocate because she's being made a spectacle. She was made a spectacle because of her Hulu show. She's being made a spectacle through her PR team, and she has been a spectacle since childhood. She would be on the news being the sad little chronically ill girl pretending to be younger than she is, getting Disney trips, a reward for her adherence to a spectacle. And now she's getting red carpets and trips to New York City because she's a spectacle, in an ironic sense, a fulfillment of her mother's wishes of garnering pity for profit.
I remember my mom had gave me this little glass house, and she said, one day this will be real. And now it finally is.
It's so easy to live here. And it's so peaceful.
We have an awesome bathtub. It's a jacuzzi tub meant for my muscles. And we have a wonderful ramp.
They used this clip in the Lifetime documentary in the 2nd episode. And when this clip is played, Gypsy states that her mother coached her. And she would tell her, we need to do this so we can finally get her happily ever after.
And none of this is her fault in a sense. You know, like what happened to her as a child, it's not her fault. What she had to do and the ways in which she had to fragment herself and become a liar is not her fault. Her murdering her mother, that's a complicated situation. The jury's still out on that one. The jury of public perception is still out on that one. But honestly, at the end of the day, I'm like, can't even like fully blame her. Like, it's fucked up, but I'm like, I don't know if I'd be any better. That's beside the point. I am willing to retract that statement if more information is found out. But that aside, this is complicated. And like, I don't think that like the brain broken true crime aficionados who rock themselves to sleep to the sound of someone crooning in their ears, tales of bodies chopped to pieces, girls mutilated by strangers in the night, parents never seeing their children again, the callousness around the sanctity of human life, their ability to dissociate from pain because true tragedy and true crime is a fantasy they visit on a phone app, meaning they will love Gypsy, like the true crime lovers will love Gypsy until she doesn't fit into their idea of who she should be. A little innocent girl with a tiny voice who has been hurt real bad. And no human is that simple. This is an adult woman who was institutionalized for playing a role in the murder of her mother. And she's gonna have to work on that for the rest of her life. So when it comes out that she actually is not a good person, and I don't mean like she is like a bad person in the sense of like she is not like she can't rehabilitate, like she's not like nuanced, like she can't find the beauty in things, like she isn't loved and there isn't warmth to her. I just mean like when we find out that she's probably a pretty crap person because she just spent 8 years in prison hanging around criminals and was being raised by a literal crazy person. When y'all find out that she is not who y'all think she is, y'all can't get mad. That's so unfair. She's gonna struggle to meet anyone who, when they meet her, won't whittle her down to the spectacle of who she is. Everybody that she meets is like, they're gonna automatically associate her with the murder of her mom and beyond the murder of her mom, because you could make a case like, damn, you had to fight for your life being a sick little tiny kid. She said in an interview that she sees photos of her as a child and she don't even recognize that person. She has dissociated from that experience, and I would too. I can't even blame her. But like, I don't think y'all realize Shorty is media trained. She is so media trained, and that's not even her fault. She has a PR team. If you have no mother, no one in your corner telling you like that you can truly rely on, like I don't think if you are privileged enough to glorify what she's going through and be like, that's a girl boss right there, you might not realize what it's like to not have a single person in your corner that you can depend on. Everybody wants something from you. She's only known her husband for 3 years, and they've only known each other in person for 2.5 weeks. Like, she just got out of jail, right? Like, this is crazy. And the fact that everybody is watching and expecting her to be a specific type of person, of course she can pretend to be a certain type of person. She was pretending to be sick the majority of her life. She is media trained, y'all, because if she meets all these wonderful people who are telling her, you're so great, don't worry, we're gonna get your story out. We're gonna get your story out. We're gonna bring you justice, and we're also going to help you out financially. This is what you have to do. This is the way the business works. And every set you walk to, everyone's like, it's Gypsy! Like, and you have been trained your entire life to get that energy from people. Oh, she's in heaven. Like, bro, that's rough. That's really tough. For her to develop a personality outside of tragedy will be extremely difficult. And I hope she has a good support system and true honesty around her. Not just like you did what you had to do, but the type of honesty and accountability that will be difficult but will allow her to grow up and move forward with like actual grace. And like people that will actually protect her from media leeches and people who have sick and perverted fascinations with her tragedy, because she was trained, y'all, to smile through unimaginable pain, not psychological pain, y'all, physical pain. She was being fed through a tube in her nose when she could eat. She lost all her teeth. She had no salivary glands. And she was still smiling through it. Hi, I'm Gypsy Rose. Bro, that's insane. She is a perfect candidate for abuse. She has been trained to be taken advantage of. That's why when everybody right now is on she's a master manipulator, like, and I'm like, sure, but You get trained by a master manipulator and have your body ravaged by a medical system, and let's see how you're gonna act. You're not gonna be like, finally, this is who I've been the whole time. I would be like, hi, my name is Monica, and I am terrified. Bro, that is so scary. Like, she has been primed to be taken advantage of, y'all, because that's what she came up with. And her fundamental development has been to be abused. And the people around her will take advantage of her because there's a lot of money and social capital to be made off of her. Side note, her stepmother seems really cool. I saw the first 2 free episodes of her Lifetime doc, and that's really hopeful. She seems to have a really good relationship with her, and I hope that she is like a really good maternal figure for her and like a great guiding force for her. Otherwise, when she starts doing weird stuff, y'all, and she will, because she had no childhood, no adolescence, no crazy phase in your 20s, like, and that's why I'm like, side note, why she needed to date, like, she needed to date, y'all. But anyways, y'all can't go from this infantilization and putting her on a pedestal to beating her up. Catch yourself now, because it's not gonna be pretty. It's not, as these months go by, it's not gonna be pretty, and that just is what it is. Like, catch yourself, because you're like, that's my queen right now, and you are catching yourself memeing it up about Gypsy Rose Blanchard and like taking it to extremes. You're being very cringe right now, and I don't even think most things are cringe. I'm just like, yo, just recognize you're talking about a convicted felon. Like, imagine you're that bored in your actual life that you think actual murder and that level of trauma is like just vibey. It's just like, oh yeah, like, that's so weird, y'all. Like, I don't know.
So I've said stuff like this on social media, and everybody is like, she wasn't a murderer, she had to do it, da 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 da. And like, for sure, whether you want her to identify as a murderer or not, she was in the same room with her dead mother. Like, just imagine, God forbid, wouldn't wish it upon anybody, wish it never happened to her. Imagine you witnessed your mother getting murdered, you orchestrated it, and you're watching her body there, what you have to live through. And then you are institutionalized for 8 years. It's prison, y'all. Like, that's why I'm like, do y'all know people that have recently been released from prison? They come out with a lot of issues that they need to work on, because prison is supposed to be rehabilitation, but in the United States, it's a very, very cruel place. It violates a lot of human rights. You suffer a lot inside of prison. It's very difficult to get out of prison and acclimate to a normal life within a week or two. Like, that's really rough. So I'm trying to remind y'all, this is not a regular everyday girl. This is not the girl next door. This is not a girl living out her biggest dreams. This is a girl that's going to have to live with the image of death ingrained in her brain for the entirety of her life. And she's surrounded by people who were not even there with her, that are going to be like, no, you did what you had to do, it's okay, and will only really try to help her dissociate from that reality, when it's like, nah, bro, that happened. Now, how do you move on from it? They might not have the room to handle what may happen as emotions start to come out, as triggers start to come out, as she may have breakdowns and meltdowns. Like, I don't think y'all realize what we're talking about. I'm not saying she's a murderer as in like, run, but as in like, dude, like, she has to live with that. Anybody that's ever had to make such a heavy decision and has a heart will take that to the grave. It is a thought that is with you till the day you die. You guys are like acting like there's, just because there's justification for it, it's something that was an easy decision and that she's just a regular girl.
All right, so some examples of things you deal with when supporting someone who was in prison or went through extreme abuse, major complex PTSD. You're going to be dealing with random triggers, panic attacks, night terrors, pathological lying, depression, hypervigilance, so much more, let alone the floodgates that may open if she has a child of her own and what that may trigger. Like, not only is she changed, but anyone who is a true friend around her will have to support her. They are changed because the level of support she will require throughout the entirety of her life is a labor of love and care. What love and care is to carry each other's weights, and that's a burden. Burden has such a negative connotation, but I don't see it as a negative thing. I see that as a true testament of your love, your ability to help carry somebody else's burden, the ability to carry somebody else's weight. And if she were to let down her mask, if she's even able to, I wouldn't even know how to. Like, I don't even know if when the lights go off and she's in her bedroom with her husband, like, if she even knows who she is, right? When she lets down her mask and shows us the trauma and guilt, heavy shit, to have 2 lives on your back, bro. 2 lives. And it's not your fault. That's the complication. But it is. Like, it's so complicated, right? The moment she lets down her mask, y'all are turning your back on her. Like, y'all don't care. She needs privacy and space. And that's tough. She has not had privacy a day in her life, y'all. A day in her entire... Like, really think about it. From childhood to her mid-20s, she was with her mom. From her mid-20s to her early 30s, she was in prison. She got out of prison and she has a whole husband. Imagine she's in a house with a whole ass man. I'm sure she's having a fun time. It's the honeymoon phase. But this is somebody that has not been alone, presumably, a day in their life. I do agree with something she said, that prison was actually a good transitionary point for her. I see that as kind of like how college, I didn't go away for college. I went to a city school, so I struggled with transitioning outside of academia into like adulthood. But people that go away for college, that's like a great transition into having roommates for the first time, getting home super late, experimenting with substances, etc., etc. Like, that's a transitionary period for young adults. And I can see how prison, freedom, more freedom than she had as a child, freedom within those parameters was probably quite healthy for her, because there was still curfew, there was still bedtimes, she was eating at specific times, she was showering at specific times. Everything was within specific confines, which is why you say someone's institutionalized. They're operating within very specific parameters, which will then affect them. But I could see how for her that would actually be a positive thing and is allowing her to transition into adult life. But her saying it's like, this is why I'm adapting so well. Sis, it's been 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks. I'm like, anytime I travel, the first 2 weeks I'm having fun. After a little while, I'm over it. It's always fun in the beginning, and I'm wishing her the best, y'all. But I'm just saying, like, she's saying a lot, and it's worrying me. Anytime anybody's talking that much, I'm scared, y'all. I'm like, I don't know what's about to happen. But
ultimately, I hope she's able to get privacy and a break. While I understand her being on a press run a week out from prison, because now is the time to pounce on all this potential promotion, and I can imagine her income is totally dependent on the success of this series and this book. I just think it's really unfortunate that there's this heavy expectation placed on her to be an advocate, to be somebody that brings forth change, when she hasn't even been somebody that even knows who they are outside of the confines of prison and outside of the confines of being imprisoned by her mother. I hope she's able to get privacy and is extremely loved and supported, and that we don't have to witness her go through much. I hope her persona remains intact and we can all mind our business, and she doesn't have to continue to suffer publicly and people don't continue to profit off of her pain. I know this is hypocritical because I just made a 45-minute long video about her situation. So if I was really invested in her privacy, I wouldn't be talking about this. But I was just very curious in the ways in which people are talking about this situation, and just the heavy burden we place on victims to be agents of change, and the way social media can glamorize someone's story of overcoming without even having an inkling of an understanding of the level of pain that she must have gone through. Wishing her the best, and yeah.
Thank you so much for watching. I've been trying to just not overthink as much and just kind of make these videos. If you've noticed that I've been more active because I put out this video. I just put out another video. I'm not making y'all any promises, because it'd be like, oh, I'm gonna make a video about this. It'd be like when I promise you guys stuff that I actually don't follow through. But I've actually on my sober journey. The devil's lettuce, fun fact, is actually one of the most damaging things to my mental health and takes away all motivation. Frank Ocean's mom was right when she said it's sluggish. What did Frank Ocean's mom say? Maybe I should make a video about that, right? Because everyone's just always like, it gives me creativity. I'm like, it actually has robbed me of everything I love. And I was right all my life, because I was always like, it's not for me. And then I don't know why I was just like, let me just make it for me, and it's not for me. Yeah, when Frank Ocean's mom said, when people become weed heads, they become sluggish, lazy, stupid, and unconcerned. Sluggish, lazy, stupid, and unconcerned. Truer words have never been spoken, let me tell you that. The moment they started putting Zaza shops on every corner in New York City, I'm like, this is like crack in the 80s, y'all. Like, my conspiracy theory brain turned on, and I'm like, how can I, somebody that was full of such light, joy, and love, and creativity, and a vibrant mind's eye, have no concept of a future outside of what's going on in the world, obviously? But I'm like, I have no mind's eye, bro. Like, my brain fog, 100% fog all the time. All that to say is, try to be off it. It's hard because I'm a chronic dissociator. Oof, reality gets to be too much. So it is what it is. It's a journey. But it's to say, yeah, I'm just trying to start off the new year with a bang, and just have fun and like not overthink stuff too. I've just been in my head for so long, like really overthinking what everybody's thinking about me, and you know, that's a vain thing to be like, oh my God, like no one cares about you that much. Like all of my favorite people that I watch are not coming through with like 800 cited sources. They're just people that just talk, and I'll listen to them, and sometimes I'll be like, that's factually incorrect, but I love your content. So it's to say, like, I get it. I get the message of what you're trying to say. I can give you the benefit of the doubt. Like, and it's like, people afford that to me as well. I don't need to overthink. So take care of yourselves. And yeah, if you find that something anything that you do should make you feel more expansive, should be something that's opening up more options for you. If you're engaging in a behavior that is making you feel like when you engage in it is closing you off from the world, take notice and potentially make a change. All the choices you make should make you feel like the world is just right there for you, open and ready and giving. All right, I love y'all. See you on the next one. Actually, no, I said I wouldn't make any promises. See you. Bye.